We're moving on to Jack with community life. Jack, you have been born, raised, and lived in the Valley and lived in Derby all your life. You have been so incredibly active, not only in the United Way and all of our different organizations here in the Valley, but also in taking care of our valley when it comes to our greenways and everything else. So I've got a couple questions for you that are going to span a number of different things. According to the results of the Community Wellbeing Survey, the Valley actually underscored the state in both accessing resources and using resources. In other words, people didn't think that there was good access to resources or being able to use resources here in the Valley in comparison to the rest of the state. You've been, like I say, here for a long time, and one of the things you had mentioned to us is that you don't think people know about the resources here.
Well, let me start by saying, as I look at the panel, I discovered I think I'm the oldest one on the panel, and I should have paid more attention to everything that Susan was saying about senior issues. But yeah, having lived here my entire life, I'm unabashedly proud of the Valley and all the things that we do. And I really think even in this study, the question you asked about the underutilization, I think the flip side of that is the good side. When we were doing the study, we had to go out and survey what resources do we have. We found out we've got incredible resources here that people don't know about. Okay, so some of our underutilization is simply because people don't know what resources we have. I want to piggyback a little bit also on Bill. You talked about brownfields and greenfields. Some of our resources here are natural resources. Most communities would die to have one river. We've got two fantastic rivers that have driven the history of this community. And some of that history had, excuse me, both a positive and a negative. The positive is those rivers provide us with transportation, water power. They were the economic drivers of the Industrial Revolution. The flip side of that was they also caused an awful lot of pollution. And I think that culminated, if you talk about the fire in '75 as a landmark, I think another great landmark here was the flood of '55. The flood of '55 devastated the Valley, kind of marked the transition, the end of some of the old industry, but it also marked the end of the pollution of the rivers, okay? Because at that point in time, the state came in and forced the cities to clean up the rivers. And over the course of the next 30, 40 years, we kind of turned our backs on the rivers as a resource. We didn't need them for the industry anymore. And our only thought about them was that they were dirty, they were polluted, they smelled. So what did? We put up walls and barriers. Well, in the interim period, those rivers cleaned themselves. So now we're in a period where the rivers are now going to be another incredible resource. This time around, it's going to be for recreation and quality of life. And I think the Valley, we've emerged as pioneers in this whole movement of greenways and trails. If you look at every single Valley town, there's something positive going on with greenways and trails. Every town. Conservation is going on. And those are resources that we haven't paid as much attention to. But let me give you a stat on just the Derby portion of the Greenway. 1,200 people a day, 1,200 people a day are out there on the Greenway. And Patrick, you talk about health. What happens when people are out there walking? So it has a cumulative effect. In the report, that's one of the items that's highlighted. Another feature that was highlighted in the report is the use of libraries in the Valley. A lot of people are questioning, what's the future of libraries? Is technology making them obsolete? Take a look at the report. You'll find in the Valley, the libraries are getting more utilization. Why is that? Well, it's because the libraries have adapted and have become community centers. And the resources they make available to the public are well beyond just the books. So I guess what I'm saying is we do have challenges. I think the barriers that are identified with income, maybe the cost, also transportation to these areas. But we have unbelievable resources here. You know, if I were to pick one place in the world that I'd like to live, it's right here. Okay, it's right here. You know, we're within an hour and a half, 2-hour ride of any possible human activity you can think of. So our location itself is an incredible resource, and we have to do a better job of promoting it. You know, the cleanup of the Naugatuck River is one of the greatest environmental cleanup stories in the entire country. Why aren't we screaming that from rooftops? Okay, so you know, from my perspective, our resources are great. We have to do a better job of promoting them.
Thank you, Jack. And another question on a flip side, not a flip side, but another part of your life. We know that engagement is really critically important to building a vibrant community. Volunteers are a vital part of our infrastructure. As head of the Valley United Way and one of the nation's few volunteer action centers, how significant would you say the role of volunteerism is here in the Valley, not just for our Valley nonprofits, but also for the people who are doing the volunteering? What does it mean to their lifestyle?
Well, just look at the audience. Everybody here is a volunteer in this effort. Life in the Valley without volunteers would come to a halt in a lot of ways. Volunteers make the Valley go. Pop Shortell used to call this the Valley of the Volunteers. Everything from our fire departments. We still don't have a paid fire department in the Valley. Every single fire department in the Valley is a volunteer fire department. Think of the enormous savings that is for the community, but also think of the pride that's engendered in each of our communities, because the firemen do a lot more for our communities than fight fires. Think of all our activities with youth, whether it be people like the Scarpas with community theater, all of our youth sports programs. All of our politicians are volunteers. You know, I know, particularly this time of year with the national election, people are down on politics, but thank God we have people like our representatives who are willing to volunteer their time and go out and take on the volunteer role. Without volunteers, we'd be in desperate straits. So it's ingrained in the Valley. You know, look back, even in the military. You look at the history of the Valley, people have volunteered here to fight in every single war that this country has ever fought in, back to even before there was the United States. So volunteers are ingrained in our life, add so much to our life. And you know, at United Way, we just recognized that years ago that we needed to provide more resources to help people. Because the number one reason that people don't volunteer, no one asked them. That's the only reason. You know, if you ask them, they will come. So it's ingrained. We have to do a better job of promoting it and asking people.
Thank you, Jack. And I actually want to do a shout out because United Way has an incredible youth program for youth volunteers to help instill in this next generation. Because when everybody has such a busy schedule, to make sure that our kids learn the value of volunteering and of giving back, they have a fantastic program. So thank you, Jack.